All right, everyone, we got some pretty breaking news. Let's go into this right now. Elon Musk has just filed a new statement with the SEC. And in that statement, let's go to it right here. You guys can see it here. I purposely copy and pasted it onto a Google Doc because it's kind of hard to read from here. This statement goes out to Vijaya Gade. I'm definitely saying that wrong. Whatever. She's the head legal officer, the chief legal officer at Twitter Incorporated. This was filed this morning around 7 a.m. Actually, it was around a little bit around 9:15 a.m. because it came out right when the market opened. When I do my market open live stream, it came out at like 9:28, and as soon as the market opened, we saw what happened to Twitter stock. Now, what did Elon Musk have to say in this? This is a really interesting piece of news because what he said in this pretty much determines what's going to be the trajectory of this deal, and we're going to talk about the implications of it in a second. So let's go to the top before we get into the meat of it. Dear Mrs. Gade, we are in receipt of correspondence sent on Twitter's behalf dated June 1st, 2022, responding to Mr. Musk's request for data and information described in letters May 25th and May 31st. I'm so excited. I'm coughing. Now, why is this important? Elon asked Twitter for certain data in regards to bots and fake users and spam and all this type of stuff about 3 weeks ago. And Twitter has refused to comply with the information that Elon wants. Mr. Musk does not agree with the characterizations in Twitter's June 1st letter. Twitter has, in fact, refused to provide the information that Mr. Musk has repeatedly requested since May 9th to facilitate his evaluation of spam and fake accounts on the company's platform. Twitter's argument is like, hey, you should have done that due diligence before. You ended up like saying that this is your best and final offer. Obviously, Twitter really wants this deal now because to get 54.20 in this market is likely not going to happen for many years, just given how the market is going. So they want to get this deal done. They don't want to present any information that would not get this deal done. They were like, hey, you should have done your due diligence before. Elon's like, screw you. I said I want to do the deal, but only under these conditions. And the conditions are I need to know how many users do you have that are real. Twitter's latest offer to simply provide additional details regarding the company's own testing methodologies, whether through written materials or verbal explanations, is tantamount to refusing Mr. Musk's data's requests. Twitter's efforts to characterize it otherwise is merely an attempt to obfuscate and confuse the issue. Mr. Musk has made it clear that he does not believe the company's lax testing methodologies are adequate, so he must conduct his own analysis, basically saying, I don't trust you guys. And to be fair, you can't trust Twitter because they misreported users by over 2 million users for 2 years, 2019 to 2021. Only in 2022 did they recognize the mistake and then recorrect the fact that they misled investors for 2 years about 2 million active users. And like you could say 2 million active users is not a big deal, but for a company like Twitter that is not like Facebook or Instagram level of like usage, every user matters because we need to know how valuable is the advertising on those users. And if there's not real users and you're misreporting the level of users, then that's not a good thing to do. So basically, that was the first part of it. And then the second part is where we get into the meat of the letter. So let's read through that right now. As noted, under various terms of the merger agreement, Twitter is required to provide data and information that Mr. Musk requests in connection with the consummation of the transaction. Transaction. Twitter's obligations to provide Mr. Musk with information is not, as the company's June 1st letter suggests, limited to a very specific purpose, facilitating the closing of the transaction. To the contrary, Mr. Musk is entitled to seek and Twitter is obligated to provide information and data for any reasonable business purpose related to the consummation of the transaction. So if we go further down, as Twitter's prospective owner, Mr. Musk is clearly entitled to the requested data to enable him to prepare for transitioning Twitter's business to his ownership and to facilitate his transaction financing. To do both, he must have a complete and accurate understanding of the very core of Twitter's business model, its active user base. So this is Elon's point. This is like, hey, I can't buy you guys unless I actually know what I'm buying. And right now, I don't know what I'm buying, which is why it's really hard to be able to say that, like, I'm going to be able to spend $44 billion on you guys. In any event, Mr. Musk is not required to explain his rationale for requesting the data, nor submit new conditions the company has attempted to impose on his contractual right to the requested data. At this point, Mr. Musk believes Twitter is transparently refusing. This is his argument that's going to get really juicy in a second about why he might be able to get out of the deal. They are transparently refusing to comply with his obligations under the merger agreement, which is causing further suspicion that the company's withholding information and data that's being requested to concern for what Mr. Musk's own analysis of the data will uncover. Basically, he's saying, look, you guys don't want to give up the data because you guys probably know there's something wrong with the data. You're afraid of what my investigative team will be able to figure out, and that makes me very unconfident to do this deal, because if you guys can't give up the data, if you're so confident, then why can't you just give up the data? Which is the next paragraph. If Twitter is confident in its publicized spam estimates, Mr. Musk does not understand the company's reluctance to allow Mr. Musk to independently evaluate those estimates. As noticed in our previous correspondence, Mr. Musk will, of course, comply with the restrictions, sign an NDA, not use any of the data in a competitive way, etc. Based on Twitter's behavior to date, and the company's latest correspondence in particular, this is the interesting one, Mr. Musk believes the company is actively resisting and thwarting his information rights under the merger agreement. This is a clear material breach of Twitter's obligations. Right there, material breach. Those are the words that have been thrown around for the past couple months in regards to this transaction. If Twitter and if Elon can prove there is a material adverse effect on the deal, something that was not known prior to doing the deal, then he can potentially, under the merger agreement, and Mr. Musk reserves all rights resulting therefrom, including his right to not consummate the transaction and his right to terminate the agreement. He can terminate the agreement if he feels the deal is unfair. This is a big deal today. Now, a couple of points of analysis. Number one, I think Elon would not have cared about the fake bots or the fake issue. Let's say the fake bots are, now, it's probably 5%. Elon says it might be 10, 20, 30%. I think that's a little bit of exaggeration on Elon Musk's part. Like, there's not 30%. Like, 200 million people, there's not, I can't even think of 20 million people that are fake on the platform. I mean, there might be 5 or 6 million, but 20 million is a lot. Like, you would just see it way more and more, right? So I think that is an overestimation. I think Twitter knows that's an overestimation as well. However, I think Twitter is afraid that if there are that many more bots, which they never wanted to investigate because that would reduce their advertising numbers, and their stock has been in the gutter for the past 9 years. So they haven't been able to get their advertising numbers up, their revenue numbers up. So they've had to be on this aggressive growth plan to just grow, but they're growing in a way that's not real. And they don't want to expose that, so they don't want any investigation. They don't want any internal or external investigations into the company and into the company's user base. That's where you're getting the hesitancy from Twitter, and that is a good thing for Elon. So even if Elon is wrong about this deal, that the bot is that high as 20-30%, Twitter's refusal to comply with the actual ideas of the deal, or with the actual agreements that they made to understand more about the company and the user base and basically help Elon do due diligence, given he's giving you guys $44 billion, which is a hefty premium. That is what gives Elon the ability to say this is a material breach of Twitter's obligations under the merger agreements. And if it's material, it's enough for him to walk away from the deal. Because obviously, let's say 50% of the users are fake on Twitter. That's a material breach of what Elon thought he was buying. It's wrong. It's 50% wrong, which means he can walk away. If Twitter doesn't want to even let him have the opportunity to find out if he's right or wrong, that is also material breach, because it's why are you being so hesitant if you are fully transparent in everything and I'm going to own the company? Why don't you just let me own the company? So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think it's very obvious that Elon realized the company's not worth $44 billion anymore. And maybe it was in April. Now it is not worth $44 billion given the market has completely tanked and we don't know when the market's going to come back. Elon also says he has a super bad feeling about the economy right now. You don't have a super bad feeling about the economy and then your ideas around free speech are enough for you to just go willy-nilly buy a company for $44 billion, even if you have the requisite financing. It's not you don't say you feel super bad about the economy and then you're like, hey, I'm going to do layoffs at my baby Tesla and then I'm just going to buy Twitter. No, and then you have to manage Twitter, you have to run Twitter, you have to make it profitable. I think he realized, look, it was a cool idea 2 months ago, and that's the nature of Elon. He's erratic, but that's what makes him Elon. He's like, I don't feel like buying it anymore. The market's not as well. If Tesla was at maybe $1,100 a share, I think he would consider it because the market's good. The market's not good anymore. It might not be good for the next 18 months. So at that point, Elon's like, I'm going to get it out of the deal. Now, Twitter is in a different pickle because they're like, hey, we really want to get this deal done because we're not getting 54.20 ever. So we want to get this deal done. But if they're not going to be able to actually comply with what Elon needs to get it done, which maybe they will after this letter. Maybe they're like, hey, the deal's still on if you give us this information. And Elon's like, yeah, I'm looking for the information. But secretly, Elon's like, I do not want this deal to get done. Maybe Twitter complies. Probably not going to happen, though. Let's go to their Webull real quick, or their stock price on Webull. Twitter is trading at $38. It's down about 3% in the market. It was at 51 just May 5th, just a month ago, a little bit over a month ago. Now it's back down to 38. It went down from about 41 in the pre-market to about 38 after this deal had closed. What are my thoughts on this? Ultimately, what I think is going to happen, I kind of feel like the deal's not getting done because Elon does not want to get it done, to be honest. I mean, it would be weird for this deal to get done now in this market. I know Elon loves free speech, but I don't know if he loves it that much to go and actually buy this company. I think he's been putting on a charade and a show over the past couple of weeks. He went on a bunch of podcasts saying, hey, Twitter's fake. They're faking their numbers. And he's been responding to a bunch of people putting out these conspiracies around Twitter. I think he does not want to do this deal. I think he said he wanted to do this deal. He wants to have some fun, wanted to, stir the feathers a little bit. I don't think he wants to do this deal. And as a result of him not wanting to do this deal, usually Elon is good at figuring out how to get what he wants I don't think the deal's going to happen. But, let's see. Maybe it does happen, and maybe Twitter figures out a way to get Elon to buy it. Paying for $54.20 would be an absurd amount of money now. So I think Elon would still negotiate to go lower if he does have to buy it. But I don't think he wants to buy it in this economy. So we knew this was coming. Elon was saying all this stuff about fake bots and users for a while, and now finally it is in legal writing that he has the ability to walk away without paying the $1 billion breakup fee that he has to pay, because this is a material breach of this contract and the agreement. That material breach makes him not legible to have to pay those $1 billion of breakup fee, and it lets him walk away scot-free. And he got to sell $8 billion of Tesla stock when it was trading much higher than it is right now, under the guise of he's selling it to buy Twitter. Well, maybe Twitter was always the scapegoat to be able to sell Tesla and not have everyone go crazy about it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Did Elon do this just to be able to sell Tesla? Is Elon trying to actually buy Twitter? Does Elon actually care about this? Or is Twitter not going to end up getting bought by Elon simply because of the fact that their users might just end up being fake? Thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you guys in the next one.